and the Senate is responsible for the oversight of the nation's commodity markets. Bitcoin, although a cryptocurrency, is a commodity. It's a commodity in the eyes of the federal courts and the opinion of the SEC chairman. There's no dispute about this. If there are exchanges where commodities are traded, be it wheat, oil, or Bitcoin, then they must be regulated. It's simply that simple.
We've all seen this coming. I've invested in crypto. I didn't get as deep as some of these people have gotten, but it is a mess, and it's going to get worse if we don't get control of it. But we got confidence that you will with our help. We've been trying to help. So, this country needs to be the leader in the world, in financial regulation, all the innovation. And if we don't, we're going to be in trouble. China's got their own digital currency that's cranking up. But
effective. And I will use the LedgerX entity as an example. On a daily basis, we know where the customer money is. And we don't have to go through LedgerX. We go directly to the custodian with direct access to know and identify the customer money. Books and records, on demand, we are able to examine books and records. These are just some examples of the direct relationship that regulation provides. And I think in the case of crypto and the bill DCCPA and your bill with Senator Lummis, these would be the authorities we have, and we could impose them and bring much more transparency to these unregulated entities.
And you did discuss, I know it's been talked about some here already, LedgerX in your testimony. What would you say in terms of the characteristics of the two, what sets LedgerX apart from FTX?
Senator, just quite simply, it's a CFTC regulatory regime. I mean, it is a forceful, strong, transparent regime that they had to comply with, and if they didn't comply with it, there would have been consequences.
Period. And are there lessons, obviously learned from their registration with CFTC that we ought to consider?
I think, as I mentioned to Senator Gillibrand and Senator Lujan as well, this question about our ability to pierce.
Chairman, you talked a little bit about LedgerX, but is LedgerX the only part of FTX that you actually have regulatory authority over? Are there other aspects of the company that you have regulatory authority over, or just LedgerX?
Senator, in terms of direct authority, LedgerX is the only entity that we have direct oversight over. There is a commodity pool operator, I believe, that's called Ledger. It might be Ledger Prime, and it is mainly regulated by the National Futures Association, which is a self-regulatory organization, SRO. So there is an indirect relationship, but I did want to mention that to you in full transparency. But to answer your question directly, the single entity that we regulate and have the most direct relationship with is LedgerX.
And what is the status financially of LedgerX at this point in terms of assets and obligations, and in terms of your ability to make sure that it retains those assets to cover its obligations?
It is solvent. It is operational. I know where the customer money is on a daily basis through direct communications with both LedgerX and the custodian, which holds the digital assets and the money, the fiat money. The company has financial resources for up to 12 months on a rolling basis. There are books and records that we can examine on a daily basis.
And are you able to, with the authorities you have, make sure that dollars, resources, assets are not siphoned off away from LedgerX? I mean, you're telling us that LedgerX is your responsibility based on the authorities you have for this larger company, FTX, right?
Correct.
You're saying that it is solvent, it is operating, it has assets to meet its obligations.
Correct.
Are you able to make sure it stays that way so that those resources are not dissipated to these other entities of the larger company?
So I would say absent fraud, we are able to do that. And I think particularly in this moment in time where the majority, the 130 entities are going through bankruptcy, and there is a laser focus from John Ray, the current CEO of FTX, and there's a lot of scrutiny about LedgerX and the other entities. It would require, a significant act to have money move out of that entity without approval, or that would violate our laws and take them out of compliance and put that entity in any jeopardy.
So you feel you are doing everything you need right now to try to maintain the solvency of LedgerX?
It has been the number one focus since we learned about the potential for the bankruptcy, is to make sure customer property at the LedgerX entity, the CFTC registered entity, stays exactly where it is. And that's why we're having daily communications with both the custodian and the registered entity.
Well, and this goes to,
and we'll get through with this interesting technology that has so much to offer, not only on the provenance of stuff, but to be kind of that foundation for currencies. Will volatility, the way we've seen it, do you think that is just the early stages of it, or do you think it'll be inherent to cryptocurrency going forward?
Senator, I think, one, you can never predict what's going to happen, but I would say if we look in the past, say, 12 months, from the beginning of 2022 to where we are right now, and especially focusing on the events in the crypto digital asset space in April and May, when Terra Luna and some of these bankruptcies at these large lenders and hedge funds occurred, the price movement of, and I'm going to use Bitcoin as the most prominent example, moved significantly downward from a much more elevated price, and then the spread or the volatility has really narrowed, more so than it ever has historically. We've largely been in a $5,000, which is a huge move, right, relative to what you're saying, but relative to the history of the Bitcoin volatility, in the past 6 months, it's been very narrow relative to its past. So is that a sign of things to come? Possibly. And could we end up in a situation where Bitcoin or other digital currencies really start to narrow and you have that pressure from bidders and buyers and sellers where that range is much more narrow? It's possible. I would say also quickly, the technology under the undergird of the foundation of the technology is really an issue. The cost from a payments perspective, which I'm sure you've read about, those are issues that I think have to be figured out in order for the application of these tools in traditional finance and payment systems. Look back to the spring when we had the Terra Luna collapse, and then now with the FTX collapse. The banking system and the market system have been largely siloed from the crypto system, and I think that is a testament to the value of our banking regulatory system and our market system, and keeping that crypto market out. I at this point, given this current size, and I was here a year ago, I think we were talking about $3 trillion in market cap, and now it's well under $1 trillion itself. There is no direct impact to financial stability, but it's not something that I think we can rest our laurels on. We have to think about what ifs and what may happen in the future, and these are the types of things that concern.
So I find this interesting. I want to put it in this perspective. It seems to be there is a competition, at least at the Capitol Hill level, between those who believe there should be no regulation. This is the new world order. You don't need the full faith and credit of any nation or known entity as long as your computer program is sophisticated enough. I'm skeptical of that personally.
Welcome to the Crypto Teacher. And you know I come back with that video just to make you think.
Don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel.
And Bitcoin is definitely a commodity. And we know why they're calling that, because Bitcoin is for the robots, algorithms, and drones. Machines now have money. And FTX derivative exchange keeps coming up. And I told you this FTX collapse was all a movie. They want that derivative exchange, guys. That means they'll be able to take the whole economy and put it on blockchain. Sam Bankman-Fried was working on the NWO's agenda, and now it is complete. And remember, the only reason why FTX went down because it didn't have enough liquidity. And we know the Fed has plenty of liquidity. And with stable coins and CBDCs, it's going to give the NWO even more power. Remember, blockchain gives the NWO the all-seeing eye. And stable coins and CBDCs are going to be programmable, telling you what, where, and when and how to buy. And you have 3 to 6 months to spend that money, or poof, it's gone. Tell your friends and family to wake up and make sure you're in the lab, because you are witnessing the fall of Babylon.
It's 2 year, it was just down like 20 basis points from yesterday.
Is the inversion, I tried to do the math quickly.
It would have been additionally...
But it's still about 70 basis points.
It's still... hang on, I'll give you the exact... The 210 you want?
Yeah, 210. I think
210 is... well done, Joe. 72.08.
Yeah, so it's still... Yeah. That didn't cure that. Yeah.
All right, but I'm going to ask what I think is the question of the day. Did Fed Chair Jay Powell intend to give a speech that would lead to this decline in bond yields and a surge in stock prices? While there were, a few dovish comments, his overall message, in my view, remained nearly as hawkish as it ever was. He said the Fed has a long way to go to restore price stability. He said rates will go higher than forecast in September. And then he said the Fed will stay the course until the job is done. But okay, now we're going to hear pretty much all the market heard.
Monetary policy affects the economy and inflation with uncertain lags, and the full effects of our rapid tightening so far are yet to be felt. Thus, it makes sense to moderate the pace of our rate increases as we approach the level of restraint that will be sufficient to bring inflation down. The time for moderating the pace of rate increases may come as soon as the December meeting.
I think as Joe said at the top of the show, he'd already said that a couple times. All right, let's look what happened to the peak funds rate. It fell to 491 yesterday for the May contract, down from around 505 as the market started to price in the potential end of hikes early next year, springish, I guess you could say. So pricing shows the market debating if a 50 in December is followed by a 25 or a 50 in February, and whether the Fed is either done after that or has one more 25 base point hike left, say, in March. So either 75 or 100 to go before the Fed pauses. Maybe that justifies the rally, maybe not. Either way, I think it's a fair bet that a rally that eased financial conditions after the speech was not Powell's intention.
Not the intention.
Out there who believe he's just a pathological liar.
Well, I'm that. He's
are.
a pathological liar. He's a con man. He admits to commingling two accounts that shouldn't be commingled, but then he says it doesn't really matter, and I feel badly. Well, you know what? Again, it doesn't matter if he's a pathological liar, the most honest man in America. The fact is he broke the law. And I understand why his lawyers don't want to talk, because a lot of times what the lawyers say is, if you admit and you do not seek Fifth Amendment protection, we can't help you. You will probably go to jail. See, lawyers say, it's perhaps better that you don't say that you did the crime.
Yeah.
I sat there still trying to, frankly, process so many of the different answers that Sam Bankman-Fried provided yesterday. Believable to you? Not believable? What was your immediate thought?
Listen, Andrew, this is the young guy who's certainly in distress. It was delusional. Let's be really clear. Sam is delusional about what happened and his culpability in it. We could all be like dime store psychiatrists, right? There's a lot of narcissism there. There's a lot of grandiosity. But being psychiatrist isn't going to really help, right? He needs to be prosecuted. He will spend time in jail. They perpetuated a large fraud. And it wasn't just Sam. You don't pull this off with one person. And so I'm hoping that the authorities get to the bottom of this faster, not just for the sanctity of the crypto markets, but for all markets. Right? Markets are based on trust. And when you have trust broken like this, it questions everyone else, right? People start looking for black swans everywhere. And so in some ways, this is the story of the moment because it is such a giant story. But it's, you're seeing someone who's just spewing more lies. And listen, Sam's always been kind to me. He has a kind demeanor. That was part of the shtick. And I'm not saying he even planned this all like a criminal mastermind. What they did was criminal, and they need to be prosecuted for it.
What doesn't kill you makes you stronger, sticking around at 16.5 to 17,000, or next shoe to drop is the overall asset space itself. And where, we've asked you for bottoms before, 40, 30, 20. Nobody knows, obviously. But 2 years from now, estimated price on Bitcoin, in your view?
Yeah, as painful as this is for our industry, because it really dented trust, I do think in the long run it becomes what doesn't kill you makes you stronger, and this is an opportunity for growth, right? There's two sides of crypto. There's the money crypto. Firms like ours continue to be regulated, right? Galaxy's regulated all over the place. We published our balance sheet. We came out the day we lost money to Sam Bankman-Fried and said this is our risk. And I think you're going to see more crypto firms needing to do that if they're in the money side of the business. There are tools, right? You're seeing it now with proof of reserves using on-chain stuff, even in centralized companies. And so I think you'll see a movement that way. And then on the on-chain crypto, right, the tech side of crypto, there's a separate set of regulation that needs to be seen there. It's a very different group, but you're going to see more and more people start migrating that way. And so in the long run, I think this is a positive, as painful as that sounds. Listen, you're seeing the Fed starting to get into the pausing narrative. Crypto would be much higher if it wasn't for Sam. And so I don't think Bitcoin is going away. There are 150 million people, 180 million people that have already decided it's an important asset. You're not going to change their minds. And so digital assets is inevitable. That'll be part of our future. And that's why I think you don't see the institutions backing away, right? Fidelity is not saying, oh my goodness, we made a mistake. They're doubling down at this point.
BlackRock had an investment in FTX.
$24 million in a fund of funds.
$24 million.
Yeah, it was in a it was not in the core part of our business.
Okay, so what do you think happened there? And then I want to talk about the diligence piece of it, because part of what's happening here is there's a lot of people questioning all of these fancy firms that everybody looks at, Sequoia, you, others, a lot of people invested in this company. Mm-hmm. And it appears that nobody was minding the store.
Well, I think people are minding the stores. The question is, we're going to have to wait and see and how this all plays out. I mean, right now we can make all the judgment calls that it looks like there were some misbehaviors of major consequences. I assume, if you look at the Sequoias of the world, they've had unbelievable returns over a long period of time. I am sure they did the due diligence. Could they have been misled? Could they have done other things? Could we have been misled in the small little investments we did? Sure, but until we have more facts, I'm not going to speculate.
And guys, this month we saw yields plunge. And when Jerome was in the house yesterday, they even plunged even more, 20 basis points. But what people are not looking at is that yield curve. Yes, it gave the stock market more liquidity, so therefore they can pump. But all these pumps are temporary. And you can see the manipulation. Remember, guys, numbers don't lie. Yes, the Fed can pull off magic tricks, but if you know what you're looking at, you're not going to be fooled. And we have the NWO taking the bank man on the tour. And for the last few weeks, they tried to clean up his image. It's not working. People are not falling for it. Remember, technology changes everything. Now the tune is changing. Jim Cramer, he's a liar. He's a con man. Novogratz, he should be in jail. And don't forget, Novogratz is a Goldman Sachs guy. He's definitely not going to tell you the whole truth. That's the reason why he gives predictions, knowing that the Fed is going to shrink liquidity. He'd know that crypto was going down further, but kept changing his bottom price. And then he admitted that he had already sold his assets when it came to Luna. So guys, if they're on CNBC, we know they're part of the plan. It's the same heads. And then we have Larry Fink of BlackRock. And we know BlackRock and Vanguard own everything. And we know if Aladdin got one peek inside of FTX, it would have clearly told what was going on. But we know what the real mission was, to test out the $100 trillion market. And remember, the crypto teacher told you, because he knows when it comes to the New World Order, it's all planned out. You have a wonderful day.
We're going to a different economy, and we're going to be learning more about that as we go. But clearly, we're learning that things can be done from remote locations. We're learning that technology can replace people even more than we thought.
We're not going back to the same economy. We're recovering, but to a different economy, and it'll be one that is more leveraged to technology. And I worry that that is going to make it even more difficult than it was for many workers.
In Silicon Valley, and my friends who work in technology know that what we did to the manufacturing workers, we are now going to do to the retail workers, the call center workers, the fast food workers, the truck drivers, and then even bookkeepers, accountants, insurance agents, lawyers, and on through the economy. So what happened to the manufacturing workers is a very clear sign.
This effort, and China has big plans for this. They intend to seed their digital yuan into the global environment by giving it away to visitors at next winter's Olympics. When they arrive at the airport, they're going to get yuan digital wallets. They're going to receive digital yuan. They're going to use it throughout their visits to Beijing, and then they're going to take it back to their home countries. They see this as a huge advantage. Why? Because who controls the underlying protocols, who controls the underlying standards of the future of money will control the future of money.
Most powerful person in the world is the storyteller. The storyteller sets the vision, values, and agenda of an entire generation to come. Steve Jobs. And guys, you know I truly believe in this. When you look at the New World Order, they're the storytellers. And that's the reason why I wrote my New World Order book. But guys, now it's time to change the current generation. And I wrote 3 kids' books. You know, I love the Trinity because I understand the power that's in it. So I have 3 books. We have an opportunity to change the generation, to educate, not just me, but I want to show you that I take action on a daily basis. And I want you to take action on a daily basis. Whether it's your job, whether it's in your community, we have an opportunity right now to educate the masses. I posted this on my Twitter account. Please share, but this is a short clip of the 3 books. There's going to be a clothing line and action figures. Please get these books for your kids, nephews, cousins, friends, so therefore we can start the re-education now. Because as we see, the 4th Industrial Revolution foundation is definitely here. Robots, algorithms, drones, taking humanity out the picture. We have to re-educate. But let's get into the video.
Part 1. King Joshua and Grandma Tam save the village. Part 2. King Joshua and Grandma Tam save New York from COVID-33. Part 3. King Joshua and Grandma Tam goes to China.
It's mandatory to get part 1, part 2, and part 3 of this series. It's time to re-educate Generation Z.